The climate system is more sensitive than most people think.
Things might go as normal, and then any small change and the system would change on its own.
The changes are more rapid than anything natural that ever has occurred before.
There's no stopping it once that happens.
Onko maapallo lämpenemässä, ja jos on, kuinka paljon? Voiko planeettamme muuttua yhtä kuumaksi kuin Venus? Mitä ihminen voi aiheuttaa maapallolle? Vastausten etsiminen näihin kysymyksiin on syytä aloittaa San Diegosta. Täällä asuu ja vaikuttaa mies, joka on tehnyt 50-vuotisen elämäntyön kasvihuoneilmiön tutkijana. Hän on professori Charles David Keeling.
This is 1953. There were people already well aware of a potential for a greenhouse effect in the 1950s. So this was known to those people who happened to read about science or were in the scientific fields themselves, but the general public probably didn't pay much attention to it. Let's just say 1989, the east coast of the United States experienced a heat wave. It was picked up by the American newspapers, and by that time somebody was telling them that it might be due to the greenhouse effect. And so there was a great interest developed in this 1 year for finding out what it was all about. So it'll be a good day for sampling. Nice clean air.
Nyt 75-vuotiaana eläkepäivilleen siirtyvän Charles Keelingin ura kasvihuoneilmiön parissa alkoi puolivahingossa. Hän oli vasta parikymppinen juuri valmistunut kemisti, kun hän innostui selvittämään, kuinka paljon ilma ja vesi sisältävät hiilidioksidia. Tutkimuksiaan varten Keeling ryhtyi ensitöikseen keräämään ilmaa.
It was a glass vessel, and it had a closure at the top, so I could actually pump the air out of it and make it a vacuum. And then all he had to do was to turn a little valve on the top, stopcock it's called, and the air would go and come down in the flask. And then you'd close the stopcock, and you could send it anywhere and get it back if you were lucky enough to get it through customs. And I decided I should make the measurements not just one single time in the atmosphere, but make them over a period of time. And I was struck by what seemed quite unusual, and that was that the measurements I made in the afternoon seemed to be the same each place I went. I looked in the literature to see whether that was something to be expected, and it was not to be expected.
Charles Keeling oli onnistunut ensi kertaa mittaamaan ilman hiilidioksidipitoisuuden miljoonasosan tarkkuudella. Hänen kehittämänsä uusi mittaustekniikka paljasti vanhojen tulosten hajonnan johtuneen epätarkoista mittausmenetelmistä. Keelingin luomaa tekniikkaa käytetään yhä muun muassa Scripsin merentutkimuslaitoksella. Käänteentekeviksi osoittautuivat kuitenkin Keelingin vuonna 1958 Havaijin Mauna Loa tulivuorella aloittamat ensimmäiset jatkuvat hiilidioksidimittaukset.
The measurements first began in the month of March, and by May and June it was clear the concentration was diminishing. And that went on until the end of the summer, and then it started to go up. And it continued to go up until the next spring, and then it started coming down again. So we realized that there must be an oscillation that was related to the seasons of the year.
Selitys hiilidioksidipitoisuuden vaihtelulle löytyy kasveista. Pitoisuus ilmassa alkaa vähetä, kun suurimmat metsäalueet käsittävälle pohjoiselle pallonpuoliskolle koittaa kevät. Tällöin kasvit alkavat käyttää hiilidioksidia yhteyttämiseensä. Syksyllä sen sijaan yhteyttäminen pysähtyy, mutta pieneliöt alkavat hajottaa maahan pudonneita lehtiä ja oksia takaisin hiilidioksidiksi. Siten ilman hiilidioksidipitoisuus taas nousee. Keeling oli löytänyt maapallon hengityksen.
The other remarkable thing was that we found that as we traced it into the second year, it was a little bit higher. And by the third year, it was quite clear that it was going to be higher each year. So we were getting an increase from year to year.
Mittausten tuloksena syntynyt käyrä tunnetaan nykyään yleisesti Keelingin käyränä. Se tuli osoittaneeksi ilmakehän hiilidioksidipitoisuuden nousevan vuosi vuodelta kiihtyvään tahtiin. Hiilen isotooppimittaukset puolestaan vahvistivat pitoisuuden nousun johtuvan ihmisen aiheuttamista hiilidioksidipäästöistä, pääasiassa öljyn ja hiilen polttamisesta. Keeling ymmärsi hiilidioksidin voimistavan planeettamme sinänsä luonnollista kasvihuoneilmiötä ja johtavan maapallon lämpenemiseen.
The greenhouse effect holds the heat back at the surface of the Earth because as the Earth is trying to radiate its warm temperatures to outer space, it gets intercepted by the atmosphere and pushed back, reflected back at the surface by this blanket of gas, of carbon dioxide. There are other gases included in this, but we can argue that CO2 is the one that's going to last the longest anyway. It's important in its own right, even if there was not more contributing gas. I have watched this process over a whole career now. By the time I started my measurements, the amount that was causing this carbon dioxide to go up at Mauna Loa Observatory, it was 2.5 billion metric tons were being added to the air every year. Now it's 7.5 billion metric tons. It's 3 times as much going in the air per year as it was when I started my measurements. So we see a process going on, those of us that are working on this now, which seems like it's got some major consequences.
Pian Keelingin havainnon jälkeen vuonna 1962 tehtiin toinenkin yllättävä löytö. Tuolloin avaruusluotain Mariner 2 tutki ensi kertaa naapuriplaneettamme Venuksen ilmakehää.
For 109 days, Mariner transmitted back to Earth continuous data on conditions in space. Then, at a distance of 36 million miles, it sent back important data on the planet Venus, a record-breaking achievement.
Venuksen ikuisen pilviverhon alla uskottiin pitkään piilevän vettä ja elämää, mutta Mariner-luotainlennosta alkaen todellisuus paljastui toiseksi. Entinen Yhdysvaltain avaruushallinto NASAn tutkija ja nykyinen yliopistoprofessori James Casting on ollut mukana ratkaisemassa Venuksen arvoitusta.
We found out that it was 730 Kelvin by direct measurements at 470 Celsius. It's hot enough to melt lead there. If you have your oven on high, that's still not as hot as it is on Venus's surface. So we also found out it has almost no water. So that's probably the most interesting thing about Venus. It's not at all a sister planet of Earth anymore, although it may have been at one point in the past.
Tutkijat uskovat, että maapallo ja sen molemmat naapuriplaneetat, Venus ja Mars, ovat alun perin olleet kuin sisaruksia. Ne ovat syntyneet yhtä aikaa ja samoista ainesosista. Alkujaan niillä kaikilla lainehti vettä valtameriksi asti, ja niillä oli myös samanlaiset ilmakehät, jotka pitivät planeetat lämpiminä, vaikka aurinko oli tuolloin huomattavasti nykyistä heikompi. Mutta mistä Venuksen nykyinen hillitön kuumuus johtuu? Se, että Venus on lähempänä aurinkoa kuin maapallo, ei riitä selittämään planeetan nykytilaa.
And it's because there's a huge greenhouse effect on Venus because of its dense carbon dioxide atmosphere.
Castingin ja hänen työtovereidensa kehittämän mallin mukaan Venuksen raskas ilmakehä vangitsi auringon lämpöä niin tehokkaasti, että tilanne laukaisi pysäyttämättömän ketjureaktion, niin sanotun kostean kasvihuoneilmiön. Venuksen meret höyrystyivät hiljalleen ja vapautunut vesihöyry lämmitti planeettaa yhä lisää. Lopulta vesi hajosi avaruuteen, mikä sinetöi Venuksen kohtalon.
Once the water was gone, then volcanic CO2 had nowhere to go. It couldn't form carbonate rocks like it does on Earth, so it just accumulated in the atmosphere.
Entä maapallon toinen naapuri, Mars? Sen kehitys on kulkenut aivan päinvastaiseen suuntaan.
Mars is cold and dry today. We see all these fluvial features that we think were formed by running water on the Martian surface, and so that leads many of us to think that Mars was relatively Earth-like early on, but it clearly isn't today.
Marsin kohtaloksi koitui sen pieni koko. Planeetan sisus jäähtyi nopeasti ja tulivuoritoiminta sammui. Koska tulivuoren purkaukset ylläpitävät ilmakehän hiilidioksidipitoisuutta, niiden loputtua Marsin kasvihuoneilmiö romahti. Seurauksena Marsin pinnalla vallitsee nykyään 10 asteiden pakkanen. Naapureihinsa verrattuna maapallo on ollut onnekas, sillä sen pinnalla vallitsee noin +15 asteen keskilämpötila. Hämmästyttävintä on, että vaikka aurinko on miljardien vuosien ajan jatkuvasti laajentunut ja sen säteily voimistunut puolella, maapallon lämpötila on pysynyt melko tasaisena. Maapallon salaisuus piilee siinä, että sillä toimii eräänlainen itsesäätelevä lämpötermostaatti. Tulivuorten syöksemä hiilidioksidi on pitänyt kasvihuoneilmiötä yllä, mutta sitä mukaan kun auringon säteily on voimistunut, sateet ovat huuhtoneet hiilidioksidia ilmasta takaisin kivikuoreen säilöön. Näin kasvihuoneilmiö on hiljalleen heikentynyt ja suojellut planeettaa auringon voimistuneelta säteilyltä.
So where are we going then? Is it Martin's for the few days? No, I think we'll carry on down this way. On the very longest time scale, what controls the carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere is how much is in the rocks versus how much is being outgassed by volcanoes. So there's a long-term cycle, but in between that there's faster processes that are cycling carbon dioxide round, like the stuff that the biosphere is involved in at the moment, absorbing CO2 and then releasing it.
Myös itse elämä osallistuu kasvihuoneilmiön säätelyyn. Biosfääri alkoi imeä hiilidioksidia ilmasta heti yhteyttävän bakteeritoiminnan kehityttyä. Sittemmin hiilidioksidia ovat imeneet etenkin kasvit. Kaiken kaikkiaan ilmakehän hiilidioksidipitoisuus on laskenut noin 1/1000 siitä, mitä se oli elämän syntyessä.
I mean, that's essentially what the Earth system does, is to regulate its own conditions, and the biosphere, the life, maintains conditions on Earth such that they're suitable for life.
Viimeisten satojen tuhansien vuosien aikana ilmakehän tilavuudesta enää noin 250 miljoonasosaa on ollut hiilidioksidia. Maapallon kasvihuoneilmiö on jo varsin heikko, mutta voidakseen yhä vastata auringon laajenemiseen, sen tulisi heiketä tulevaisuudessakin. Nyt ihmislaji kuitenkin syytää hiilidioksidia ilmaan 100 suuren tulivuoren purkauksen vuosivauhdilla ja vahvistaa kasvihuoneilmiötä ennennäkemättömän nopeasti.
The problem is, of course, humans are part of life on Earth, but they're perturbing the system in a more radical and a more abrupt way than has ever been done before, such that many of the regulatory mechanisms on the very long timescales probably can't operate in the thermostat in the way that... So in some ways we are messing with the thermostat, we're pushing it too hard, and it's... I don't think we can expect the natural systems to save us from what we're doing to the planet, because there's really no way they could have evolved to be ready for that.
So humans are now really changing carbon dioxide. If one looks at the history of carbon dioxide and temperature over the last ice age cycles, we have now pushed carbon dioxide out of the range in which it's been varying. Carbon dioxide levels were higher than this tens of millions of years ago. The dinosaurs lived on a much warmer world with much higher carbon dioxide, but we are changing it very rapidly and very much.
Ilmakehän hiilidioksidipitoisuuden ja maapallon lämpötilan tiedetään aina kulkeneen käsi kädessä. Kuluneina satoina tuhansina vuosina niiden kulkema vuoristorata on koettu maapallolla jääkausien ja nykyisen kaltaisten lämpimien jaksojen vaihteluna. Onkin vaikea ajatella, että hiilidioksidipitoisuuden ja lämpötilan tiet nyt erkanisivat.
The observation is that temperature and carbon dioxide have gone with each other for as long as we can tell. And so it's highly likely that human carbon dioxide will warm the world. And so I think that we need to seriously entertain the hypothesis right now that what the record of the past is telling us is that these future changes will be on the large end. That's not fact, it's not known for certain, but that seems to be the direction that the paleoclimate record is pointing, is towards large changes when we look into the future.
Mitä planeetan lämpötermostaatille on tapahtumassa? Voiko sen toiminta pettää kokonaan? Vaikka hiilidioksidin sitoutuminen kivikuoreen on aivan liian hidasta vastatakseen ihmisen aiheuttamaan kasvihuoneilmiön voimistumiseen, entä lämpötermostaatin muut osat? Myös meret ja kasvit poistavat ilmakehään päästettyä ylimääräistä hiilidioksidia, eli ne toimivat niin sanottuina hiilinieluina.
It turns out that approximately half of the CO2 from fossil fuel can be taken up by the oceans, but even more if you give it plenty of time to do so. But the way it's been working out, the faster you burn fossil fuel or accelerate the amount of fossil fuel burn, the less efficient the oceans are temporarily in taking it up. So as we burn it faster and faster, the oceans are falling behind on how much they take up, and so even more stays, a larger fraction stays in the air.
Kaikkiaan merten hiilinielua heikentää, paitsi päästöjen kasvuvauhti, myös samaan aikaan etenevä lämpeneminen. Sillä mitä lämpimämpää vesi on, sitä vähemmän se pystyy sitomaan hiilidioksidia. Lisäksi pintavesien lämpiäminen saattaa lopulta estää hiilidioksidin pääsyn yhteen sen suurimmista varastoista, merten kylmään pohjakerrokseen. Merten tapaan myös kasvillisuus toimii tätä nykyä hiilinieluna. Hiiltä varastoituu kasveihin ja niiden mukana myös maaperään. Ja periaatteessa hiilidioksidin lisääntymisen ilmassa pitäisi vain parantaa kasvien menestymistä.
Joe, look, the litter. See that? This is sort of wow. You see that?
I can get some grass.
You see him? You see him?
Yeah.
He's what's helping to make soil. It's a plant helping to make soil.
Ilmastomallintaja Peter Cox on perehtynyt erityisesti hiilen kiertoon, ja hän on viime vuodet tutkinut, kuinka kasvillisuuden hiilinielun käy ilmastomallien ennustamassa tulevaisuudessa.
Plants live off carbon dioxide, so more carbon dioxide is generally beneficial. And what that means is that initially you're getting more carbon stored in the vegetation. The vegetation is producing more litter, leaves, roots, woody biomass that falls into the soil, and therefore the soil carbon is increasing. But the second thing that's happening, that's counteracting this tendency for the soil carbon to increase, is that the temperature's going up. And when the temperature goes up, the rate at which the organic matter that falls into the soil is broken down by the organisms in the soil increases, such that even though you've got more carbon going into the soil, the rate at which it's coming out is going faster. And eventually that effect wins.
Nykyisestä hiilinielusta tulisikin hiilen lähde. Ja Peter Coxin mukaan hiilidioksidia voi vapautua maaperän lisäksi itse kasveista, jos nykyiset kasvillisuusalueet alkavat tuhoutua. Näin voi käydä jopa maapallon keuhkoina tunnetuille Amazonin sademetsille.
What happens is that the climate change predicted by our model suggests the Amazon basin will dry to the extent that the forest can't be sustained, and the carbon that's in the soil and in the forest itself is emitted to the atmosphere, and that's why vegetation carbon drops. It's basically because the Amazon basin starts to suffer. So we could lose the tropical forest altogether. We could go to a savanna and may even get it more arid than that. We could end up with a kind of semi-desert. And the mechanism by which that might happen are things like fire. So if it gets sufficiently dry, say in the tropics, there's good evidence to suggest that you'll suddenly get an increase in the amount of fire that you get, which means that you really can't sustain a wet tropical forest, it just burns.
Ilmaston lämpeneminen todennäköisesti lisää ilman kosteutta ja kasvattaa sademääriä, mutta samalla mullistuvat sadevyöhykkeet. Kuten Hadleyn tutkimuskeskuksen mallissa, nykyiset sateiset alueet saattavat yllättäen kuivua, ja ratkaiseviksi voivat osoittautua näennäisen pienet muutokset. Amazonin sademetsien kuivumiseen voi riittää alueen 4 kuukauden mittaisen kuivan kauden piteneminen parilla viikolla. Arizonan yliopiston geologi Jonathan Overbeck on löytänyt varoittavia esimerkkejä tuhoisan pitkistä kuivuuskausista yllättävän läheltä menneisyydestä.
If you go back to the late 1500s, you find a drought that lasted 20 to 25 years, depending on where you were. But it extended at sometimes all the way from Mexico up to Canada and from the East Coast to the West Coast. Very substantial droughts. And this is only a couple centuries ago. If you go back further in time, you can find droughts that were even longer. And those are triggered by very small changes in climate forcing, much smaller than we're anticipating in the next 100 years. This is not something that the politicians or even many of my scientific colleagues understand, is that these droughts have occurred, and they've occurred in recent Earth history. And yet we don't really know what triggers them. Other than as you change climate, we suspect that the faster you change climate, the more likely you'll get one of these climate surprises. Just about any place you look on Earth, you can get these long droughts. So if you couple the changes in mean precipitation that are predicted to occur with the probability, it's very real, that we'll get an abrupt shift into a drought without warning. We're playing with fire, literally.
Hadleyn tutkimuskeskuksen ilmastomallin mukaan kasvillisuuden ja maaperän lämpenemistä vahvistava palautekehä laukeaisi jo noin 30 vuoden kuluttua. Se vahvistaisi ihmisen aiheuttamaa lämpötilan nousua lähes puolella.
And that was a big worry really, because one of these feedbacks we thought was not important enough to be worried about to a great extent turns out to be rather critical, at least in our model.
Kaikki ilmastojärjestelmän lämpenemistä kiihdyttävät noidankehät eivät kuitenkaan liity hiilen kiertoon. On myös aivan toisenlainen mekanismi.
There are parts of the climate system that can accelerate the warming. And to me, probably the most troublesome one is the melting of the Arctic. I spent a lot of my time working in the Arctic. And one of the things that's happening there is the sea ice is melting back faster than people thought it would.
Lumi ja jää viilentävät maapalloa, koska ne heijastavat peilin tavoin auringon säteilyä takaisin avaruuteen. Ilmaston lämpeneminen puolestaan sulattaa maapallon jäätiköitä ja vähentää lumipeitteisyyttä. Kun paljaiksi jäävät tummat pinnat imevät auringon lämpöä aiempaa enemmän, tämä voimistaa lämpenemistä edelleen. Koko maapallon ilmastoon vaikuttavista suurista napajäätiköistä Etelämanner on paksua mannerjäätä, mutta pohjoinen napajää vain merenpinnalle levittäytynyttä ohutta merijäätä. Siksi pohjoinen napajää on vaarassa sulaa jo joissakin vuosikymmenissä.
And so you end up what we call a positive feedback. A small warming causes melting, that accelerates the warming, more snow and ice melts, and you get more warming, and it can literally go on until you have, during the summers at least, a ice-free Arctic. And if that was to happen, the whole system, the whole Earth would probably warm dramatically compared to the sort of average scenario for global warming.
Many of the climate models do indeed give largest climatic change in the high northern latitudes, mainly due to these albedo feedbacks. Now, what is required in order to eliminate the ice on the Arctic is something that is being studied, but the models are showing different results there. An ice-free Arctic would, of course, alter the temperature fields of the entire northern hemisphere, or at least the high latitudes of the northern hemisphere. So the wind fields will undoubtedly be quite different. And since ocean currents essentially are driven by wind fields, we will see changes in the Gulf Stream. If that were to occur, then we would have very dramatic changes, not only in the vicinity of the Arctic, but in much of the northern hemisphere.
Sen, kuinka suuren osan auringon säteilystä maapallo heijastaa avaruuteen, ratkaisevat kuitenkin lopulta pilvet. Jos odotettu kosteuden lisääntyminen lisää myös pilvisyyttä, se voisi viilentää maapalloa merkittävästi. Pilvisyyden lisääntyminen ei tosin ole varmaa, eikä pilvien vaikutuksia muutenkaan vielä täysin tunneta.
So there's a whole range of these feedbacks. Clouds are probably the most uncertain one of all, because we're not quite sure whether they're positive or negative, whether they're going to increase the change or decrease it. You could actually end up amplifying climate change rather than slowing it down.
as the globe is warming, it appears that most feedbacks are positive, such that the increase will be even more rapid than today.
Maapallon ilmastojärjestelmä voikin lämpötilan säätelyn sijaan alkaa vahvistaa lämpenemistä. Millaista muutosta ihmiskunta on siis planeetalleen aiheuttamassa?
The system doesn't respond as you expect it to respond. We don't know enough about the system. And there may be some, what we call nightmares or monsters out there, that we haven't a clue about them. So the consequence is we need to be careful. When you push something along like that, which is what we're doing at the moment with the world climate, you can push it and not much happens. But then suddenly you fall over an edge. And the world climate system can fall over edges. It can go to a different, completely different system. And that's what we're worried about.
If you're in one of those feedback situations, the system's made up its mind and it's off somewhere else and there's really nothing you can do about it. It no longer becomes dependent on the amount by which humankind is changing the Earth. You just get to the point where the tiniest of changes can cause the system to change state. And that does happen in complex systems.
Entä kuinka pitkälle lämpenemisen syöksykierre voisi johtaa? Voiko hiilidioksidin määrä ilmakehässä nousta niin korkeaksi, että kasvihuoneilmiö ryöstäytyisi lopullisesti valloilleen, kuten Venuksessa on käynyt?
I was worried about that myself, so I did that calculation more than 15 years ago. And you can run CO2 on Earth up to 100 bars, up to Venus-like levels, and you almost get to the moist greenhouse regime, but not quite. So Earth is quite stable against a CO2-induced runaway or a moist greenhouse. It just doesn't happen.
So you can rule it out with carbon dioxide, but other greenhouse gases like methane are much stronger, have a much stronger greenhouse effect.
Well, methane's a very interesting gas. Methane has about 60 times the global warming power of carbon dioxide. So 1 gram of methane has the same impact as 60 grams of carbon dioxide.
Vaikka hiilidioksidi ei yksin riitä saattamaan maapalloa Venuksen tilaan, tutkijoiden huolenaiheeksi on aivan viime vuosina kohonnut toinenkin kasvihuonekaasu, metaani. Suoraan ihmisen toiminnasta aiheutuvien päästöjen ohella metaania voi nimittäin ilmaston lämmetessä alkaa vapautua myös sen luonnollisista esiintymistä. Aivan Pohjoisnavan tuntumassa sijaitsevalla professori Kim Holmenin johtamalla tutkimusasemalla seurataan sekä hiilidioksidin että metaanin pitoisuuksia ilmassa.
The high northern latitudes have a number of methane stores and methane sources that all possibly can react quite rapidly to a climatic change. The natural source wetlands in Russia, Siberia and Canada appear to increase their methane flux, and that response to it, a climate change would be rapid and would indeed yield higher methane concentrations.
Suurimmat metaaniesiintymät piilevät kuitenkin maaperässä ikiroudan alla sekä kaikkien maailman merten pohjassa, niin sanotuiksi hydraateiksi tiivistyneenä. Näiden metaanihydraattien jäinen kiderakenne on erittäin herkkä paineen ja lämpötilan muutoksille. Ne voivat helposti purkautua kaasuksi ilmakehään.
Methane hydrates on land could, of course, if the permafrost melts very rapidly and suddenly release quite a bit of methane. Likewise, if one gets a warming of the Arctic Ocean, the amount of methane there is just humongous.
Merten pohjalla kuplivat metaanihydraatit voivat alkaa purkautua, jos meret lämpiävät vain muutamalla asteella. Lisäksi pienetkin muutokset merivirroissa muuttavat merten lämpöoloja ja voivat siten vapauttaa metaania. Maapallon menneisyydestä tunnetaan muutamia metaanipurkausten sarjoja.
And it appears that about 55 million years ago that the deep waters of the world were warming for some reason, and that this destabilized the methane in the seabed, and that caused a lot of warming, maybe many degrees Celsius globally average. There's a little uncertainty in just how much it warmed, but it was enough that everybody noticed. And that in turn did cause changes in who lived where. It caused extinctions. It's very notable in all the records of biology on Earth at the time.
All over the Arctic you see what's called pockmarked terrains, where you have holes that are 100 meters across and 20 meters deep, which have been blown out by methane blowouts. And those can blow out really very large amounts of methane. The methane feedback could certainly rapidly increase global warming if there were big feedbacks.
We know that this reservoir is volatile. It can be perturbed. Where the threshold is placed is still not known.
Vaikka maapallon metaanivarastojen suuruutta ei vielä kunnolla tunneta, niiden verrataan olevan 2 kertaa niin suuret kuin kaikkien tunnettujen hiili-, öljy- ja kaasuvarantojen yhteensä. On hyvin epätodennäköistä, että kaikki metaanivarastot purkautuisivat kerralla, mutta jos näin kävisi, aiheutunut lämpötilan nousu olisi kohtalokas.
You're talking about tens of degrees change, I would think, in terms of the global mean temperature and a lot more. But that would require that the whole hydrate came out, which is unlikely.
Näin suuri lämpötilan nousu riittää tuottamaan loppujen lopuksi tärkeintä kasvihuonekaasua, eli vesihöyryä, niin paljon, ettei paluuta olisi. Maapallosta tulisi kostean kasvihuoneilmiön takia kuuma ja eloton, aivan kuten Venuksesta.
What happens is that as soon as you get the surface temperature more than about 30 or 40 degrees warmer than it is on Earth today, you just get a lot of water vapor in the atmosphere, and that gives such a good greenhouse effect that it just doesn't matter anymore if there's CO2 there or not.
And that is a possibility that I don't think we can rule out currently in the climate system.
Well, I don't think that's likely to happen, but it's perhaps not impossible.
Kasvihuoneilmiön valloilleen riistäytyminen on äärimmäisen epätodennäköistä, ja elämän loppua maapallolle takiamme tuskin tulee. Mutta entä ihminen? Ihmiskunnan käsistä kasvihuoneilmiö voi kuitenkin karata peruuttamattomasti.
I don't think we're going to trigger a runaway greenhouse, but we can trigger a climate change that's bigger than anything that's happened for 100 million years.
I'm not worried about runaway greenhouse effect, because before it will happen, something else will happen.
underestimate even 2 or 3 degrees is a huge change to the planet. Even the lower limits of where we think the planet will be in a century or two, even those lower limits are things to worry about a lot.
My guess is we'll guarantee, if we don't stop climate change, the Earth's 6th mass extinction, where we'll lose more than half of the animals and plants on Earth, simply because they won't be able to keep up with the rate of climate change.
They can't move and they can't adapt fast enough because we're doing something that is so unbelievably fast in terms of the Earth history.
Things will start to happen in a way that we've never seen it before, and that'll make things very difficult. And I think it's very easy to imagine widespread ecological disaster and as well as large-scale societal hardship and economic hardship. And it's an awful big risk to take.
If you lose something like the Amazon forest, we've only really been thinking about how that affects the carbon cycle. It has an enormous impact on the world. Lots of people are living in South America, of course. It's a phenomenal impact on humankind if something like that happens.
Right now, there's a scientific consensus about what might happen in the future. And some things we know well, some things we don't know so well. One of the things that's real clear to the scientific community is that the Earth is going to warm. It has been warming, and it has been warming due to humans. The question is, though, how much more will it warm?
Yhdistyneiden kansakuntien alaisen ilmastopaneeli IPCC:n laskelmien mukaan maapallo lämpiää seuraavien 100 vuoden kuluessa vähintään noin 2 astetta ja enintään noin 6 astetta. Nämä ennusteet eivät tosin sisällä kaikkia lämpenemisen noidankehiä, ja lisäksi ilmastojärjestelmä on paljastunut uskottua herkemmäksi. Siksi tutkijat arvelevat lämpenemisen voivan olla vielä voimakkaampaa.
So, if I was given a guess on a sort of business as usual thing, I would say somewhere between, by the end of the century, somewhere between 4 and 10 degrees.
A 6-degree rise in global temperature, just the thought of it really, really scares me. It's such a major change. I cannot conceive of what the world would be like.
Almost for certain we are going to warm the Earth up by several degrees, but I don't think we want to allow it to warm by 10 degrees Celsius. Hopefully we'll do something about global warming before we get to that point. Humans would survive this, I'm convinced, but there's all sorts of consequences. Sea level rise is one of them. We could get by without 20% of the continents. Of course, half the population lives on the seashore today, so people would have to relocate. You'd rather live at the poles than you would live anywhere near the equator because it gets uncomfortably hot. Insect-borne diseases, think about something like malaria. That's confined to the tropics today. That would be global. It's a whole different climate. I think medically people would have a huge problem. Agriculture would have to be probably reinvented.
Ihmiskuntaa lähitulevaisuudessa odottava kuumuus on viimeksi koettu planeetallamme hirmuliskojen aikakaudella 100 miljoonaa vuotta sitten, kauan ennen ihmislajin kehittymistä.
We're looking at climate change the same magnitude as from a glacial period to an interglacial period occurring in the next 50 to 80 years. Something to bear in mind is that the warming isn't going to magically stop at that point.
Edes ne kaukaa maapallon menneisyydestä tunnetut ilmastonmuutokset, jotka ovat aiheuttaneet valtaosan eliölajeista tappaneita massasukupuuttoja, eivät rajuudessaan vedä vertoja sille, mitä ihminen on aiheuttamassa. Kun esimerkiksi viimeisimmän jääkauden päättänyt lämpenemisjakso oli sekin geologisessa mielessä nopea ja laittoi luonnon koetukselle, tuo muutos kesti 10 000 vuotta. Nyt ihmisen ansiosta maapallo voi lämmetä saman verran ja ehkä jopa puolet enemmän vain 100 vuodessa.
We are talking about the fastest change we know about by a long way. And the whole concern about dangerous climate change is really about rate, actually, when it comes down to it. With these rapid changes, it isn't just that they're rapid, it's that they're irreversible. Even if the next generation decided they wanted to reverse the problems that we'd caused, they wouldn't be able to do it.
Of course, that will have very strong influence on our ability to function as a society. And that's, of course, maybe a long-term risk that if the changes are too rapid and we are unable to adapt, then there will be a collapse in a society, culture as we know it. The question will always be uncertain. The argument that we must wait with decisions until we have complete knowledge, then we can wait too long.
You know, humankind has to start to reduce the dependence on fossil fuels pretty soon. Well, it has to start happening now, and you have to get to the stage where you're less dependent, even though we're going to have a bigger population and we're going to want better quality of life for the people on the earth.
Pitkään tekeillä ollut Kioton kansainvälinen ilmastosopimus pyrkii vasta vakiinnuttamaan hiilidioksidipäästöt nykyiselleen. Tutkijoiden näkemys on, että jos ilmastokatastrofi aiotaan estää, päästöistä on leikattava lähes puolet seuraavien 20-30 vuoden kuluessa, ja kaiken kaikkiaan lähemmäs 90% vuosisadan loppupuolelle tultaessa.
Even if we give ourselves 50 years to come down to zero fossil fuel usage, it will be very hard work every day of those 50 years to be able to accomplish that.
But the reason I'm optimistic is because humankind's actually very innovative. You know, I mean, we do find ways to solve problems. We've got all sorts of things that we couldn't have dreamt of 100 years ago. But we need to focus that ingenuity, that innovation on solving the big problem. We just need to have the will to do it. Governments need to have the will, and individuals need to have the will to solve the problem.
What's going to happen is that the next ice age will not take place. So maybe that's a good thing, but at least it's a huge thing that the human race has done to forestall an ice age for 100,000 years by the CO2 in the air. I cannot ever get it out of my consciousness that it's way off from anything we thought of. You couldn't grasp it. Maybe it's unpredictable under the best of circumstances of how much warming we're going to get. My feeling is it's going to be probably not less than about the average of what's being predicted, that the low end is probably wrong. The high end goes way out. You just can't really put a limit on that. If we were cautious as a human race, we wouldn't be letting this thing happen.